Hello, and welcome back to the Iron Road podcast. My name is Ian, one of your hosts, along with my friend, longtime friend and training partner. I miss those days, buddy. Eric, how's your training going? I see your morning Jocko Willink-esque content, 5:30 in the morning. You hardo, you. How's that going? You enjoying
Dude, I
that
am
training?
crushing it right now. Okay, crushing it. I feel like
Tell me more.
I forget which stand-up comedian did this bit. He was talking about how his wife was pregnant, and he's like, "Yeah, she's really big and uncomfortable, and she's throwing up every day." He's like, "Me, I am crushing it. I'm going to the gym, pumping iron every day. Sleep is still an issue.
Yeah,
I think I'm definitely getting a little better at settling down early, getting my daughter to bed earlier so that I could, instead of feeling like I'm forcing myself to sleep, I'm actually like relaxing a little bit. And sometimes even skipping a meal. Like there might be, usually I eat my last meal at like 7. But if she's tired and I'm tired, I might just go right to bed. Honestly,
got it.
I don't, you
Yeah,
know what I mean? Because you got to ride that momentum down. But yeah, dude, training's been great. The only thing that sucks, and this is just a recurring problem, my left elbow is just mangled. And it's just something you have to work around. But like, I don't know if you can see this here, but I can't straighten it past this,
damn.
and I can't bend it past this.
That's
Uh,
just standard, or is that recent?
That's from jujitsu, and it comes and goes. It's like inflammation that I'll get every now and
Okay.
again. So certain tricep movements are really challenging. Um, and believe it or not, a lot of shoulder pressing movements are challenging if I get too deep into
Oh,
flexion at
wow.
the bottom and have to press out of it. So I feel pretty good. Otherwise, I'm not squatting with a straight bar, so I'm not. If I had to squat with a straight bar, this would be a real problem, dude.
Okay.
Wedging myself under it, like it would be like a real issue.
Yeah.
I've just been doing my my progressive overload stuff, which the more time goes on, the more I'm convinced that that style of training is what works best for me,
Okay.
and works best for most people. But with the caveat that me and my partner Andrew, like we're pushing it hard. Like this morning we did total body. We start total body with pull because
Okay.
we start our upper body day with push. Obviously legs, our middle day of the week, we are doing legs, so that's the only thing we're training. So I always want to train the pull muscles while I'm fresh at least one day a
Nice.
week, and then
Yes.
we end with legs. And that's the only way we could do it. Like we did hack squats today and did like 2 heavy sets of like 8 on hack squats. It doesn't sound like much, but with the spotter there, when you can go down for those last couple reps that you're not sure you're going to be able to move it, but you're
Yeah.
actually okay, man, like it's that Dorian Yates ish strain where you get off the machine, you're like, I'm done. Like I don't need to do a set of 20 here to
Nope.
feel like I am completely cooked.
Yes.
And it's fun to have someone to push you to that point. I think progressive overload is great, but you get the most out of it with a training partner.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. Because you
You
have
need
to push to
someone
that
there.
limit. You need that
Yes,
limit.
yes.
And if it's dangerous or scary without it, it's really hard to do that. Yeah, I've
You
been kind
don't
of,
need like sets of 15 to grow. You could do sets of 6 to 12,
yeah.
but they have to be hard.
But
You have to put that work in. Like it
but
has
whether
to be
you're
to
at
the death.
if you're at 6 to 8 or 12 to 15, you still want to reach that fatigue threshold, and it's still going to take some risk depending on the movement. Barbell movement. You said hack squat or maybe a Smith squat even. But that sounds awesome, dude. And is your training partner keeping up? That's one question I have because I don't have any training partners right now, and I don't ask many people to train with me because most of them think they just can't hang, and it's not about that. So I want to try to explain to people
It's
it's not
very
about
annoying.
hanging.
I've had that problem.
It's just about like the energy you get from a partner, like somebody else being in the room, pumping you up. And
I mean, look, he's in better shape than me cardiovascular wise.
okay,
We're talking he's probably like 175 pounds, shorter than me. And he gives me like on any of like the hammer strength pressing movements in particular. I mean, he beats me.
okay,
He's one of those guys that's built to squat, built to bench, not so much built to deadlift.
fair enough.
On the leg machines, increasingly, I kind of blow them out because where it really comes down to like, can your quads move this load? When we actually put the legs under tension and not like, what's the anthropometrics of this person and how could they get in and out
Sure.
of like I wind up kind of crushing him, but uh he keeps up. Obviously, every bar and machine is adjustable, so it's not like it's a huge
Oh yeah.
deal, and it's not like I'm so much stronger than him that like it's inconvenient. Like I'm belt squatting 8 plates aside, and he's belt squatting. No, that's not what's happening. Like
Fair
we're
enough.
within striking distance. And look, dude, I mean, this is not true of my partner, but I think people need to kind of understand this. Like, you ever see like I've seen a lot of YouTube content over the years where there might be someone, and this is not, I'm not drawing any parallels between me and my partner or me and Ian. I'm just making a point here to people who say to Ian, oh, I don't want to train with you because I'm not on your level. I've seen a lot of podcasters over the years. You have a guy who's talented and a guy who's not that talented. Okay. And everyone in the audience is always like, why is this not talented guy working with a talented guy? You know why? Because he shows up on time. He holds the guy accountable. Okay. And he does the work.
Yeah. Yeah.
And sometimes doing those 3 things is better than doing the work well.
Well,
Because if you can't do the
hard
work
work beats
well
talent.
consistently, doesn't matter. Okay.
Yeah.
So what if you have a training partner who is benching 500 and driving you to get strong, but he shows up 1 out of 3 days and you don't know what day it's going to be? That's not a training partner.
No,
Okay.
it's a liability. Yeah.
It's not a training partner. So like,
Agreed.
yeah. And it's funny. A lot of my jujitsu buddies were telling my buddy Andrew, man, I don't know how you train Prush. I mean, he's probably so much stronger than you. This guy was an Army Ranger. He's like, who gives a shit? We're just lifting weights. And,
Well,
like
yeah.
and that's what I always think of. I remember, I'm sure I told this to you years ago, hanging out with Travis Mesh. And he told me, he was like, Eric, he always had that raspy voice, He's like, Eric, want to know the secret mindset that I finally developed so I could break Ed Cohen's world record? And he did. He did break Ed Cohen's record. He was a phenomenal 220 lifter, Travis. And I'm thinking it's going to be like, I don't know, something psychotic. And he's just like, I woke up one day and I realized all I do in this sport is just lift weights in front of my friends. Why am I putting so much fucking pressure on myself? I'm just lifting weights with my boys. And I was like, in the beginning, you're like, that's letting you down. And then you're like, actually, that's really profound. Yeah, all I'm doing is lifting weights here. That's it. Like, we're not curing cancer.
Yeah.
I'm just lifting weights in front of a crowd of people that like to see people lift weights. It's actually a friendly environment. I'm not going to be executed if I screw this up or something. So like, yeah, just show up and work hard. That's really like all that it comes down to. And fact of the matter is, if you're out there asking for training partners, it means that you need help.
Yeah.
So
And
like,
often in the powerlifting world, everyone's rooting you on, even if they're your competitors in the same weight class. There's such camaraderie in strength sports that people want to see you
yes,
succeed. Nobody wants to see you bail or bomb out. So that's pretty funny. That's interesting. It's a cool way to think about it because in my tenure of strength sports, I've always had better lifts in the gym for the most part than on the platform because you
okay,
get butterflies. You just sometimes I show up on the contest day, but for the most part, when you're more comfortable, you will lift better. You'll definitely have a better day out on the
yeah,
platform for sure.
So to answer your question, training's going well. I've been doing all the arm stuff that you sent me. I've made some adjustments based on like what my elbow can handle.
Sure,
Realistically,
sure.
it's
So is
just
it
kind of
overworking you?
what'd you say?
Is it overworking you think?
No, I don't think so. I
Okay.
mean, I haven't been grappling as much. When I go back to grappling a little more full speed next week, I might have to make some adjustments, but
Okay.
we'll see what happens.
Sure.
But right now, 3 days a week lifting feels like a sweet spot for me. And
Okay.
again, because of our podcast, I've been so much more engrossed in bodybuilding, powerlifting, strongman
Yes.
type culture, and it just amazes me. I think in our community, how many guys their desire to train more frequently because they love it so much
Yeah.
is oftentimes either A, not necessary, or B, detrimental. Uh,
Counterproductive.
yeah, like
Yeah.
I'm seeing great results at 3 days a week, and of course, my first instinct is like, all right, how can I sneak in a fourth day? And finally, I had the maturity to be like, no, actually, getting bigger, getting stronger, showing up motivated, ready to train.
If it
Like
ain't broke, don't fix it.
I don't need to add another day. And I there's a guy who I would the next person I hire as a coach will be this person. His name is Kurt Havens. Super intelligent guy. Has got like one of the few guys that studied PEDs like on like the academic level, like has actually done studies. He himself is a bodybuilder, and I was listening to him talk about his training the other day, and he was basically saying like when he was natural, he just trained upper, lower, upper 3 days a
Okay.
week, and then carried it over to the next week. And then when he became enhanced, he then went 4 days a week, upper, lower, upper, lower. Again, this is a guy who's just bodybuilding, and then eventually switched it to push pull legs, but still only trained 4 days a week.
Yeah.
And that's what got him, the best results. And so so many people they have this nervous energy. They want to do more stuff. And listen, if that's what makes you happy, that's what makes you happy. But now that we're older, you understand everything. Nothing is free here. Like that still is mileage on your body.
Yes.
Okay. And like I want all the mileage on my body to be productive mileage, which is why I keep drifting back to lower volume, higher intensity, progressive overload stuff. The Mike O'Hearn logic of okay, volume is volume in terms of wear and tear on the joints. As long as you're lifting with good technique, if you could get a strength or hypertrophy stimulus from 12 total reps across 2 sets, that's likely better for your joints than doing 36 reps. Okay. Especially on something like a squat, right? A leg extension, maybe different story, right? But
Sure. Sure.
a squat or a deadlift, especially when you factor in systemic fatigue, potentially ruining your form and causing problems. Like that's the other thing. Like
Truth.
when you get older and you become a more advanced lifter, actually, I'd be curious to hear your opinion on this. Years ago, I remember reading a lot of I mean still we'll still read Jim Wendler stuff to this day. In 531, he had this template called boring but big.
I love that
And
one.
it's yeah, so 5 sets of 10 of a
Yeah.
compound lift.
Yeah.
But as he became older and as his audience became older, he started basically saying like, look, 5 sets of 10 is not really a particularly good rep scheme for a lot of older, more advanced lifters. Like an older, more advanced lifter can get a lot out of a set of 5 reps.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's true.
Yeah, like your
That's true.
technique is so much more on point. You get so much more out of your body at that point that you don't need to nuke your body with volume to grow. Like if you're a
Interesting.
really technical squatter that knows how to get tight and totally, 5 reps is exhausting.
It is
To
with the right
bracing
weight.
yourself, like really doing it with 1,000% intensity. That if you wrote down 5 sets of 10 on a deadlift for me, I'd be like, what did I do to you? Like I don't
Yeah.
like this is yeah,
How have I
like
wronged you?
yeah, I would look at
Yeah.
that and I'd be like, I don't know if I could train after that. Like and like anything serious, I could do like biceps. Okay. Like, but
Yeah.
I don't think I could do anything aside from like grip, maybe.
Because you're just
Okay.
again, like you said, systemically shot.
Cooked.
Yeah.
Totally cooked.
I think
So I'm
I
enjoying the
think
challenge.
that's great. That's great. I think there's a couple sides to that. There's if you're a natural lifter like myself, you're not lifting that heavier weights, so the volume doesn't really matter that much because it's not like I'm repping 500 pounds for 30 reps across a session. So since I'm not that strong because I'm not, not enhanced, the volume isn't so detrimental to my joints, in my opinion, long term. We'll see. I guess knock on wood, right? We'll see in the next 20, 30 years. But then the enhanced lifters can do a lot more weight for the volume, but they can also recover faster from the volume. Like you said, you're doing 3 sessions a week, which when you're training as you are and doing it really well, you're getting as much as you need to out of it, but you could probably handle more. You know,
I'm gonna
you could
chime in on that.
probably go farther. So a lot of people who are blasting gear, if they want to do more because they have all this newfound energy, they can because they can actually continue to keep up for the most part. That's part of the reason why drugs work so well is they quicken your recovery and allow you to absorb a lot more damage and come back from it.
Yes
So
and no.
that's
Yes and no. I'm gonna give you a counterpoint here. Okay. I'll send you this video. It's older, probably 5 or 10 years. It's Dave Tate, Jim Wendler talking about lifting for enhanced and lifting for naturals. And in my experience, this is actually true, especially for strength sports. Maybe not so much bodybuilding, but I would actually still agree. that it's true for bodybuilding with a couple assumptions. Okay. So first of all, like there's several different pathways that your body can grow muscle. The one that naturals need to be the most concerned with is placing the muscle under mechanical tension. Okay. So we're not talking about just getting a pump. We mean actual tension in the same movement pattern. Okay. And improving the strength or the output of the muscle in that movement pattern over time. So basically progressive overload. Okay. Now, when you are on steroids, okay, that becomes less necessary because you're leveraging other pathways, right? So you don't necessarily have to leverage, let's just broaden this out. There's probably three pathways to being jacked, right? There's training, nutrition, and drugs, right?
Yep.
You really, for the most part, most people only usually leverage two out of the three to their
Sure.
maximum level. Okay. I would argue the reason why Dorian Yates was such a great bodybuilder was he was the only guy in his era. Okay. And then later Ronnie Coleman did this that leveraged all three. Okay. Most of those guys were just getting a pump, or if it was like someone like Kevin Levrone, he liked mechanical tension, but he only trained half the year. Okay,
Sure.
so he just wasn't able to come back and build on what he had grown. Ronnie Coleman loved to lift heavy, engaged in progressive overload, and he took what Dorian did and put it to the next level. Okay, now the reason this pertains to, I think, lowering volume, all anabolics have a stimulating effect to them. Okay. You take a guy, you put him on TRT, you will notice that his resting heart rate will likely go up. Okay.
Okay.
If you start to take higher doses of testosterone, and I know because I've been there, 200 milligrams might be your low end TRT, high end TRT, low end steroid cycle. Let's say you get the TRT plus, which would be maybe 300 milligrams. Now we'll say 500 to 1,000 milligrams of testosterone. In the beginning, you will notice that your sleep will kind of be a little off because there's a
Mm.
stimulating effect that your brain gets from the drugs.
To your
Okay.
nervous system, basically.
Yes. Now, what this
Got it.
means is that when you take drugs, and one day when you go on testosterone, you will notice this, and it's more pronounced on androgenic drugs like trenbolone, or like orals like Anadrol, maybe Anavar. You will notice when the drugs kick in, there is a snappiness to your lifts that wasn't there. It's not discernible, okay? But your force output just seems to increase. And one of the ways you could know if you're taking bunk gear back in the day would be like you start taking your tren, it kicks in quick, you're taking tren acetate, you come to the gym, and you get to that. For me, it was always like 315 on a squat. Okay. And there was just when the drug started to kick in, you would just feel this extra pop when your hips came through. You're like, all right, we're good. Okay. But what does that do? What does that mean? It means that every repetition is becoming more expensive for recovery. You're putting more and more force through the bar. Okay. So, yes, what you're saying is true if we're talking about pump work. If you're a guy that just goes and gets a pump, yeah, you'll get a greater pump from the drugs. The muscles themselves will recover quicker. But if you're someone like Dorian Yates, who is leveraging mechanical tension in challenging low rep, obviously for bodybuilding, not for powerlifting or weightlifting, in challenging low repetition areas, okay, you can't recover from that much volume because it's like shooting. The analogy I always use is getting a pump or being a beginner lifter. Like when you first come into the gym, okay, it's like shooting a 22 caliber rifle. Okay. Even if you put a bar on your back and you can only squat 135, right? You could put a lot of rounds through that gun and your shoulder's okay. Okay. Once you're strong, okay, and you're like putting serious weight on the bar, it's like shooting a 50 cal. You only do so many rounds before your shoulder's like, I've had enough. And
Sure.
that is the effect on your nervous system. So I think if you train with heavy mechanical tension, I think you actually have to lower the volume because the force output is so much higher that it's simply more expensive. Okay. Now, if you're doing an Arnold Schwarzenegger style, if we all tried the Encyclopedia of Modern Bodybuilding and wound up in a
Yes.
wheelchair for a week, where you're doing sets of 12 and 15, but you're probably leaving, like, let's be honest, like 3 reps in reserve on every single set that you're doing. I think, yes, you could do more volume because of the drugs. But I think the reason why Dorian had this opposite approach was he was pretty much going to 0 reps in reserve on exercises where he was putting insane amount of force through the bar. Like yesterday, I uploaded a video about him, and I took some clips from Blood and Guts. Dude, he's repping 425 on the incline for sets of 8 with perfect technique. That's
Yeah.
expensive. That's expensive to your nervous system.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like I do think that you have to lower the volume sometimes if that's how you want to train.
I think
Okay.
it's also dependent on the person though, because
Oh,
like
of
I know
course.
two people who can run marathons. One guy can run 3 marathons and his knees are burnt out, his hips are shot. The other guy is ready to run 12 more. So I think your durability is somewhat innate. Like what might bother your elbow because of your history of jujitsu, not because I'm more durable innately than you, but your activity history, your sport history has put some torque on your elbow. So you can't tolerate what I can tolerate from as far as the arm work goes and all that
For
volume
sure.
goes. So I think it's very individual dependent. And can we be honest, bro? Nobody's Dorian Yates, and nobody's taking that, like that Dorian Yates, Tom Platz insanity to the end, that to the last rep. Even the really high level bodybuilders now, they're leaving reps in the reserve. They're leaving reps
Well,
in the
yeah.
tank.
I mean,
That's like an old school
it's
mentality that I mean, 99.9% of lifters, whether they're amateur, bodybuilder, basic, they're not taking it to that limit. And
of
then,
course. And again, as the drugs have changed, a lot of times the intensity of the lifting has gone down. And that is part of the reason why guys tend to have longer careers now too. You know what I mean? So like Dorian did not have he won the Mr. Olympia 6 times and had to retire because he got injured. Right. So there is
yeah,
always a cost to whatever you're doing. But I just do think you'd be surprised. Like I don't really think there's such a thing. Like I think you should as a I don't think there's such a thing as a program for natties as versus a program for enhanced. I think that you should always program as if the person is natural. Okay, because a natural program will work for someone who's natural and for someone who's enhanced. Okay, and the extra volume that the person can or can't handle when they're on drugs is so highly individual that
yeah,
that you need to just assume like they'll just be able to move more weight on the natural program. They'll still see progress. You know,
that's fair. That's
you know,
fair.
like when you start to, and I've seen a lot of guys, myself included, go on steroids and start to do things in their training that are more extreme because they're on steroids now, and their results start to peter out
Okay.
because they're adding intensifiers. Oh, let's do some drop sets, some rest pause, some forced repetitions. And it's like, you actually don't need that. Like if you just kept doing what you were doing and cleaned the diet up, you just would have gotten stronger each time. And I think sometimes it works almost in the opposite. This is kind of, I don't know if this is true. This is kind of my theory. Like I think people do think that steroids work, and listen, they do work this way, but they also work the opposite. They work because I go in, I lift weights, the muscle gets bigger. As the muscle gets bigger, it gets stronger. And then as that time goes on, like that effect continues to occur and you just get bigger, right? But there's also the central nervous system side of it, which is because your force output has increased because of the nervous system stimulation, you actually come in and you're stronger at the same weight that you were last week. And now the muscle's catching up to the nervous system. So there's both. There's both of these
Sure,
pathways
sure.
work, right? So I just think it's so, like you said, it's so down to the individual. And bro, the last thing to kind of piggyback on your point there is like every influencer that I respect, guys who are our age and older with a lot of training experience, a lot of coaching experience, they've accomplished a lot, be it they've gotten a pro card or they've got a really good total. The number one thing they say is if you don't enjoy your training, it doesn't matter if it's perfect, right? So if you were to tell me that it would be perfect for me to do 4 sets of 15 on every movement with 3 reps in reserve, I would start running marathons. I'd be miserable.
Fair enough.
I
Fair enough.
hate training in that
Okay.
way. And that's probably why I've always had bad arms, was because I thought that's what arm training was supposed to be. And
Oh,
I'm like,
I would argue yes. Higher
this
reps work
sucks. I don't
better.
I don't want to do this. Like I want to be
Yeah.
challenged, okay? And more intense people, a shooting star that burns bright does not burn very long. Like intense lifters sometimes can't handle long sessions.
Yeah.
They need to get in and out. Like, you know me, I'm an intense guy. Like, I have to get in there, I got to go nuts, and then I got to get out and recharge my battery.
Yeah.
Where you're a much more even keel person than I am.
For
So you
sure.
you could handle that. Okay, 3 sets of 15. Let's be in the gym for 2 hours. For me, I'm like, I want to set some PRs. I want to fucking headbutt somebody,
Yeah.
and I want to go home. And that's you have to base that training style on the lifters themselves. There's not a coincidence that the guys that trained at Westside Barbell were all crazy people. Okay, it's not like you see these guys that do like Shiko or Smolov, like these like high volume, high frequency squat programs where every day you're doing 80% of your max for sets of 5. Like those people, when they train, it's like a church. They
Yeah.
have to keep stimulation down because they got to squat again tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's so
That's fair.
down to the
That's a
individual.
fair point.
So, I mean,
Now,
and that's your point.
I would argue that when you're programming initially for someone, where you have, let's say, person B and person A, or person A is enhanced, person B is not. I agree with you absolutely that you start off treating them both the same. But let's say after 3 months, 6 months, 9 months of programming, it's an analogy. It might not work. Let's try it out. So imagine they both have a bucket of water, right? The
Mhm.
amount of work they do on each session is the bucket of water. So it's the limit. You fill to the limit. So over time, enhanced person is doing the same amount of work, but not filling the bucket, right? Not filling all the stimulus they need to continue to grow. So you need to do more work to keep filling the bucket, whereas the same work might work for the natural lifter. Does that make sense to you?
It does, but I don't think it's true. I
I
think
think
I,
so. I
I, I,
think
I
there's
keep going.
results left on the table. So that what I'm saying is,
Mhm.
with the enhanced lifter, again, you would know a lot more than this because you've been both not enhanced and enhanced in your lifetime, and I have not. But it seems like, from what I've seen and I've heard and I've seen from training partners, on the internet all the time, is that eventually you can handle more and more and more work. Doesn't mean it's always necessary, but you can handle and recover from it. So it's like when we were saying the West Side guys do tons of accessory work. I might not be able to handle that heavy a compound lift plus all the accessory work that they do. I just can't recover from it. The enhancement helps you recover. And I forget who said this. It may have been during that documentary, Bigger, Stronger, Faster, one of my all-time favorites, where they were saying that it doesn't just work magically and make you stronger immediately. It's basically because you can do more work and you can recover faster than the natural guy, you can continue to compile more work, more sessions in the same amount of 12 weeks than somebody else couldn't if they were natural.
So I think that's
Big
true.
sigh.
That's now you have to be more specific here. I think for combat athletes or athletes outside of strength sports, that's more true. Okay, because they're taking it once they've gotten to as strong or fast as they need to be to play their position. Okay, the rest of it's all technique, it's all skill work, right? So if you're able to practice your sport more because you're recovering faster,
Sure.
enough practice, you will begin to get better than other people, and of course things like injury prevention and so forth.
Yeah.
Okay, but I mean, obviously, as a lifter improves, stimulus needs to change. Either volume has to go up, okay, or load lifted has to go up, right? Total work done has to go up, basically, we'll say, right? And there's more ways than one that you could do that. You could just
Sure.
continue to lift in your 6 to 8, like a Jordan Peters, who like does all this heavy training, like 8 reps or less. The guy is a fucking unit. Okay, he just loves progressive overload. Okay, and as time goes on, he's always just like in trying to increase the weight lifted in the rep ranges that he knows. And then there's other guys that might say, hey, we have to increase volume over time. But that in and of itself is no different than a natural lifter. Okay. Now we could argue that the rate of improvement or increase in volume that they could handle is different because of the enhanced lifter being enhanced. But here's the thing. This is an argument against PED use that people have made over the years, and I would argue that it's actually true. Okay, in a lot of cases, okay, not all the cases. Maybe if it's done intelligently, this wouldn't be true. But in a lot of cases, the enhanced lifters, tendons and ligaments are not necessarily getting stronger or more firmly connected than the natural trainees. Okay, and within that
Well,
same timeline. And so if you make these adjustments to make these huge boosts in strength in short periods because you're on gear, that's when guys get hurt, man. You know what I mean? So
yes.
these are like now, yes, intelligently constructed cycles and training could account for some of this, but there's no disputing that connective tissue adapts much more slowly to training than muscle. Right.
Yes, that's exactly
There's
right.
just no disputing it. Right. Even if you're doing your training in the right rep ranges, super high reps, super low reps, you're taking drugs that help with collagen synthesis and help them to thicken your tendons and ligaments. The muscles are still getting faster. They're still getting bigger and
Always.
stronger. Okay.
Always.
And that
Yep.
combined with the central nervous system stimulant element of it means that your force output is oftentimes greatly outpacing what the connective tissue can handle. And that's another reason why I'd say don't overthink it. Just if you're going to do drugs, let the drugs do their job. Okay. And don't change anything unless you stop progressing. Okay.
That's
And
fair.
it's just like regular training. Like you should never feel like you're on drugs. You should just feel like you're getting better. Okay. You shouldn't be going into the gym and acting like a berserker. You shouldn't feel
Got it.
when you're on steroids like you're crazy all day. That's a mistake that a lot of guys from our generation made, which was like, okay, in order to really get better, I have to suffer by feeling like I'm a psycho. Okay. And the newer generation is more like, I mean, well, maybe not. Maybe the people I see on TikTok who are totally insane don't think this way, but the newer generation of informed people are like, okay, you should not be at a point where your sleep is heavily compromised and you're moody and you're insane. Now that's actually detracting from your progress, right? You should never feel like you're on drugs. Okay. Maybe while you're training, maybe, but in general, let the drugs do their job. Okay. And just keep doing the work. I think when guys get greedy and they go on PEDs and then they say, I want more. And dude, I've even seen this in jiu-jitsu. I've seen guys, oh, I'm going to start taking testosterone. Let me add 2 extra days a week of training. They get hurt or they get mentally burned out.
Fair enough.
Right.
Yeah.
So like
Okay.
even your brain has to acclimate to doing more work. You has to, like you're giving up more time. There's other things that you're doing that have to be sacrificed. So I'd be really curious. I actually think when the time comes that you go on TRT, I actually think you should document it. Actually think that you should make a public journal about this. Like, hey, 38-year-old lifetime natural lifter takes testosterone for the first time. I think it would be really eye-opening for, first of all, it would get you a lot of followers, which is always the goal, right? Uh,
Yeah.
but
I'm not so good at
second,
that.
but second of all, like I think it would be really eye-opening for you to see like that. Yes, drugs matter, but like you you don't have to change a lot, okay, when you go on them.
That's fair. I mean, it just makes everything you're already doing more powerful.
Yeah,
Like the
and
dieting I'm doing
yeah,
now, the training I'm doing now, how consistent I am, my sleep is going great, my diet is pretty much immaculate. So all that gets elevated because of the drugs,
yeah.
you're
I would
saying.
say the biggest thing that you would notice, aside from like holding more glycogen, so you look fuller.
That's
Yes,
what I want,
you
yeah.
definitely would get stronger, but also like the percent that you could deviate from an ideal diet and still look good is a lot greater than when you're natural. If you take drugs, maybe not TRT, but like let's say a higher dose of testosterone, you could be like within 80% of perfect on your diet and still look great. Okay.
Okay.
When you're natural, you don't get that much wiggle room.
No,
You have
I
to be
know.
like 90% or better to look like you train. You know what I
I
mean?
know.
It's
Really a pain in the
and
ass.
so like that's a big, but that's also why the ceiling for a great physique is so much higher when you're on drugs. Is now if you're on drugs and you're 100% over the
You have
target,
wiggle room.
there's you're just gonna progress.
Yeah.
But I just think, man, like I wouldn't change that much, and as someone who's taken them and as someone who has taken multiple extended breaks from them,
Okay.
right? So this is the other thing. It's not like I started taking them in my 20s and never stopped. Like I've come off, I came off for years in some cases to try to to successfully father 2 children.
Yeah.
I was off for I think over a year each time. Okay. And like in both instances, I didn't change my training when I got back on. Okay. I just let the drugs do their job. Okay. I lifted what my body was telling me to lift whenever I came back in. I ate what I knew I had to eat, and I just progressed a little faster than I would have if I was off. Okay.
All right.
And keep in mind, one last aside, because I have for something very funny I want to talk to you um, about this is like you and I are not, especially me. Uh, I'm not someone who at this point in time is over my natural limit.
Okay.
Okay. So like the big thing with drugs too is like if you're really someone who's dialed in, you've trained naturally for a long time, you've taken no breaks, you're fucking super consistent, okay? At that point, the only way to really get better is to take drugs, right? And so everything you put on after that can only be maintained with the drugs.
But who knows
Okay.
what your natural limit really is until you raise that ceiling, I guess, right? I mean,
Yes, you could make
many
a
people don't
guess.
sniff their natural limit because they don't do the work, the
Exactly. And
diet,
there's
the
no
sleep to get
very
there.
few
So
people have
it's
done that aside from maybe like literally like Ronnie Coleman.
sure.
Okay. Like,
Yeah.
guys that were
Yeah.
just great genetics that trained
Dialed
hard the
in.
whole time and everything. But like, so a lot of times you're taking drugs, especially on a high level, to maintain something that could not possibly be maintained without the drugs. And that just means the amount of tissue that you carry and the strength that comes with it.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
it's such a murky thing. I'm very hesitant when someone's like, "Oh, this is a training program designed for guys who are on drugs." Because I just don't think it works that way. And one last example, and this is very famous: the Bulgarian lifters, the guys that maxed out multiple times a day, every day. That the system that produced all these great lifters, not all, like a handful of great lifters, right? Dude, these guys were all on drugs. Still, almost none of them survived the program.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Like still, very few of them survived. And in fact, here's a funny anecdote for you, Mr. DiGiacomo. It's come out later that the guys who survived the program were the ones who figured out how to sandbag it.
Really?
They would go in and make it look like they were maxing out. But they were so tired, like
Hmm.
maybe no one could know the difference. But like your coach was like, all right, you got a 1 rep max front squat in the morning and a 1 rep max back squat at night.
That's brutal.
That guy's coming into the night and she's making it seem like he's straining with whatever's on his
With
back.
70%.
Yeah, but he's not going hard. No way. You
Smart
know.
guys.
Yes. I mean, dude, it's
Jesus.
like, it's kind of like, literally Travis Mash used this analogy to me. He was like, those guys, it was like they were in like a work camp. That was their
That's what I was
life.
just thinking, actually.
It's
I
like,
was
that's, yeah.
just thinking about that,
He was like, it was like
honestly.
you were in a work camp. And if you think about it, you know, or like having a shitty retail job. All right, so remember when you were a kid and you had probably a shitty job somewhere? There was always that you didn't get paid enough. Your boss was an asshole. There was always that guy that came in and worked too hard
Yeah.
and showed
The
how
try
much you
hard.
were
Yeah.
sandbagging it. But
Yeah.
but there was no upward mobility. There was no reason to even do this except now the guy realizes that more is possible, and now he expects more of us when we work. It's kind of
Yeah.
like that. Like you show up and like if you're in a POW camp and they're expecting you to make like grenades, okay, to for them to use against the enemy, like you get the bare minimum number of grenades done. You're not
Yeah.
just you're not like going in there going
Yeah.
real
Yeah.
hard for this. Yeah, you're
Because
just
then
like
they
a
raise your
couple.
quota. It's like a
Yes,
UPS driver. If you
yeah.
hit 70 deliveries, it's 75 tomorrow.
It's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
the episode of Seinfeld. One of my all-time favorite anecdotes from Seinfeld is when Jerry does Newman's job for a day, and he delivers such a high percentage of the mail that all of Newman's coworkers hate him because no one's ever delivered that much mail in a day, and now they're expecting them to do more work. Like,
Yeah.
it's just like,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Now, totally off topic. It's funny. This morning you messaged me pretty early, like 5:30, as I was on my way to the gym, and I was thinking about you like an hour and a half before. So I get up at
Okay.
like 4, and the first thing I do is I put on headphones so that my phone does not wake up anyone in the house. Right. So whatever I'm listening to, no one can hear it but me. And I eat my breakfast, and I always would put on like a movie or something. And I don't know what the hell I was thinking. I think it's because I've been listening to a lot of Phil Collins recently.
Okay.
I put on American Psycho. right?
Nice.
And I'm watching this movie, and I was thinking about first of all, Christian Bale looks great in the opening scene to that. Like a
Yeah.
great svelte physique. Like
Yes.
obviously put the work in, underrated. He almost looks like Van Damme-ish, dare I say,
Mm.
in that in terms of the type of body he's presenting. Okay. Um, dude, that movie it says so much about society in the 80s, and it is actually very profound. And when I go back and rewatch it, I'm like more and more amazed at how good it is. But dude, it is so funny also. It
Oh
is it
yeah.
is so funny. And I remember hearing that Christian Bale said that him and the director would watch like the dailies. They would watch what they shot the day before and be in tears laughing because of how ridiculous it was. Like
Yeah.
the performance he was willing to pull off. But the reason why it reminded me of you, I've never told you this before. So remember your wedding, you got married during COVID, and then you
Yep.
had the big ceremony after things had reopened. So it was around
Correct.
Halloween. And
Yeah.
I remember you told me that you were like, yeah, we're gonna have a live band. And I always had this dream of performing Susudio, which is one of the songs that he plays in American Psycho, at your wedding while dressed in the plastic suit with the axe because you had like a Halloween themed wedding.
Yeah.
And I remember I
Yeah.
was like talking to my wife about it, like I want to pitch him on this, but I have to bring the axe. These guys don't know me, and she was like, just don't say this. Like what? Like, but I had literally,
I
I'd be
would have
like
loved it.
driving around listening to the song. I'm like, it would crush if I could get like the plastic gloves, if I could like roll out like a fake newspaper, but like thing, like I was gonna murder someone
Yeah.
on stage and
Hey, Paul.
do this stupid dance.
Yeah.
Uh, like I would do the monologue first, like this is a studio, a personal favorite and a great song. But yeah, it made me think of you, and it was funny because you messaged me like right after. But I mean, what a totally insane movie, and Christian Bale's ability to transform his body is extraordinarily
Crazy.
impressive.
Crazy.
Just extremely
Commitment.
impressive. Interestingly enough, I think that they considered DiCaprio for that role, and I don't think it's that good if DiCaprio's in it. He's not
I wouldn't
crazy
put.
enough.
I wouldn't bet against him, but because he's pulled off almost every role he's ever been in. I don't think he's ever been in a bad movie or a bad role for the
But
most part.
Bale
I fucking
he's
hated his accent in Blood Diamond, but I will go no further.
okay.
Fucking so annoying. I
Yeah.
hated that accent, dude. It really just rubbed me the wrong way. It was just like so cringe. But yeah, I mean, a lot of those roles, you switch one guy out, and I was researching Physique of the Week this week,
Okay.
and apparently the person who was going to play this role almost didn't get it, or it was almost not this guy. So let's just dive right in real quick while
Let's
we're
do it.
here. So movie came out in 2000. It's the first time this actor played this role, like this character, and that he went on to continue the character for some time.
I already know who it is, but
So
continue.
go for it.
Okay, it's Hugh Jackman, Wolverine.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
the reason I bring this up, it wasn't really to stump you so much, is because the standards have changed.
Yeah.
I want to bring up his physique in this movie. I'll pull it up here 1 second. Because he would get laughed off the big screen today. I do believe that he would be. Let me see if I can share it. Window. Check this out. I mean, you know,
Oh yeah.
I could play this. Like if it was based on physique alone, I would do a lot better. So it's like
Dude, I would destroy this. Are you kidding me?
that's what I'm saying.
Destroy it.
So
Especially, dude, I'm really glad you brought this up. No one steps into a Hollywood role like this, like, unless they were really pressed for time or they didn't know what they were doing. Every time you see someone with their shirt off, they've got a pump.
shredded,
There's great lighting.
oily.
There's all of these
Yeah, yeah.
things that go into making the person look better.
There's like mascara between their abs.
Yeah, like
it's like to edge them out. And yeah,
Stallone in Rocky and Rocky 4 and Rambo 3, right? Like
yeah.
arguably I think his peak physique might have been Rambo 3. I think that's like his heaviest while still
Okay.
being shredded. You know what I mean?
Sure.
I think he actually was around 200 pounds, supposedly, for Rambo 3. I think he was lighter for Rocky 4. But again, you look at Stallone's physique in Rambo 3, and I want to get back to Hugh Jackman. I'm not just changing the subject. But when you look at it, especially now that you have a trained eye, You're like, he's got a pump. He's
Oh
oiled
yeah.
up.
Oh yeah.
And that's Stallone's a smart guy. He understands bodybuilding, at least for movies. He understands presentation. I mean, he's a director, possibly the greatest action actor of all time. If not, he's in the top 2 or 3. There's not many guys you could put ahead of Stallone in
Sure,
this
sure.
genre, right? And so there's all sorts of work done with the lighting, the oil, the pump to make him look realistically probably 2 to 3 body fat percentage points lower and probably 10 to 15 pounds of muscle bigger.
Yep.
Okay.
Oh
So
yeah.
the Hugh Jackman thing, I'm so glad you brought that up. I agree that physique is a joke, first of all.
Well, but
Okay.
the thing is, it wasn't. Like when I first saw that movie when I was young, it was like, oh shit, Wolverine's like in a tank top. Like, the point is, the point I'm making is the standards, especially because the drug use has probably
Yeah.
accelerated between, among recreational lifters and normal people. And then the Instagram and social media has exploded. So the people you were really impressed with on Instagram are the fucking top 0.001% of people that there are in the world.
Who
So
may
but
also
you see,
die soon, by the
but
way.
you see, and they, yes, on
Yeah.
their way. But you see these people daily, and they're like, oh, that's normal, I guess. Oh, I've seen abs like that before. This 12-pack, but you lose appreciation for what's actually naturally possible,
Mm-hmm.
and what's because it wasn't a bad physique. It was just for the time. Like you said, that who was that guy you mentioned, Bronson, a long time ago, many episodes ago.
Yeah.
Like, good
Looks great.
physique, but not like shredded, jacked
He
all at the
looks
same
better than Hugh
time, mass
Jackman does,
monster.
quite
That's
frankly.
true.
You,
That's
you know,
true.
you know. But here's the
Yeah.
thing, too. I'm glad you brought that up, Ian, because the other thing that makes Hugh Jackman being cast as Wolverine like kind of like a unique and cool thing is he's also like a legit actor.
He
He
is.
wasn't being cast because of the physique, right?
No,
Like if you see
true.
whichever terrible Batman movie has Bane in it, the original one, okay? They literally cast, I don't know if it was Batman and Robin or Batman Returns. I forget which one it was. Either way, it's terrible, okay? Bane is in one of those movies,
Yeah.
okay? And unlike The Dark Knight Rises, where they cast a legit actor and then just tried to make him bigger, they
Got
just
it.
picked a 410-pound strongman competitor and threw him in the suit. Okay.
It's kind of
Look,
awesome.
obviously
But
the guy couldn't talk and he was just a Neanderthal,
he wasn't
but
supposed to talk in that movie, right? They just wanted to
precisely.
be.
But that's
Got it.
taken into
Yeah.
account where Wolverine being a main character, they couldn't just get a jacked up muscle midget to play
Fair.
Wolverine. They had to get like a
Which,
serious actor. Now,
yeah.
what makes me really impressed with Hugh Jackman, okay, is there are actors that obviously get into shape for a role, okay, and then they're not really into training. They get out of shape. Who cares? Okay. Hugh Jackman's physique has progressed so much over the course of him playing that role that he legitimately looks great now. Okay.
Well, do you think it's because of the introduction of something special, some kind of drugs, and
Well, sure, but my point is, I don't think he stopped training. Okay.
it's 25, but that was 25 years ago, and he was probably in his mid 30s then.
Yeah.
Like
But
it's like The Rock when he was,
I'm not saying he's not on drugs. I'm just
okay,
saying that dude, I have met the person who trained Hugh Jackman for a lot of these roles.
okay,
Okay. I don't want to name any names here. Okay.
fair
And
enough.
said that after the X-Men, Hugh Jackman fell in love with lifting and just kept doing it.
How can you not?
Now that's what I'm saying. I respect him. Of course he's taking TRT. Of course he's taking peptides. That's what it takes to stay in the game in Hollywood.
Sure,
That's just, it is what it is. Okay. But like, that is not someone who, oh, I've got a role. Let me just blast some gear, train for 16 weeks and then get out of shape. That's a dude that kept training. And in fact, over the years, you see pictures of him on the beach or something with his kids. He never looks like shit. He's
No,
always
it's
looking
true.
pretty good. So he obviously liked to train, kept doing it, and because of that, was kind of like a perfect candidate to keep playing this role because you've got a legit actor who's getting bigger and bigger, as time goes on. That's the point of lifting, to get bigger and stronger. So even if he's not going crazy, 3 pounds here, 5 pounds here over the course of 20 years of
Adds
playing
up.
the role. Even if you put on 1 pound a year from 2000 until now of muscle, that's 20 pounds of muscle.
Yeah,
Okay. Like that's
yeah.
a huge difference, right? So I respect him for enjoying training, putting in the work, and like it brought legitimacy to that role. I mean, people forget that movie came out at a time when comic book movies usually always sucked and were a total joke.
Yeah, it was before the Avengers and
Yeah.
all those series came out, the Marvel stuff. Yeah, that's true.
If the
That's a
if the
fair point.
if the X-Men crashed out, and maybe I wish it would have, because I actually hate Marvel movies, but the fact of
Hmm.
the matter is, if the X-Men crashed out, we wouldn't have all these other Marvel movies. That
That's true.
movie had to work, okay? And that's why they cast so many legit actors. I mean, Halle Berry's in
So
that
many,
movie.
so many good
James,
actors.
what's his name? James Marsden. He plays the goofy sheriff in the Sonic movies, but he's legit.
Oh
He was on
yeah,
Westworld.
Cyclops,
Yeah,
right?
he plays Cyclops, right? Obviously Patrick Stewart is like an amazing actor. Amazing.
Ian McKellen.
Yeah, Ian McKellen. So they went all in.
They
Uh,
stacked the cast
yeah, to make
for
that
sure.
movie as viable and legit as possible, which meant they couldn't just go for the jacked guy that could barely talk. They needed to have people that could present this, make you fall in love with the character. But Hugh Jackman over the years, I mean, he looks like a guy from what I could tell. I don't think he trains legs. Everything
That
I've
was,
seen.
I don't know if it was CGI, but there was a meme a long time ago where it was like his legs were abnormally slender. Like he never trained them once, or it could have been photoshopped. I'm not sure, but
I'll look
where
it
he was
up.
standing next to somebody like a fan, and he was in shorts, and it was like linguini legs, like really underdeveloped, like polio legs.
Polio legs.
Yeah.
That's really funny, dude.
You ever see
That's
Always Sunny? Where
polio legs,
you ever see
dude.
Always Sunny where Dennis is like he's in the wheelchair, he's pretending to be crippled, and he goes, I have to put a blanket over my legs because they're way too muscular and athletic to be confused with polio legs.
I just saw the picture. Yeah, yeah. That's very skinny. That's like 10 or 12 years old. 10 or 12 years old. That picture.
Okay.
Um. So yeah,
First of all, can we just say I can't believe that X-Men came out in 2000? 2000? That's a long fucking time ago.
I saw that movie in the theaters. I remember seeing it. That was between my graduation from middle school going into high school. I went
Nice.
with my friends, and I remember like thinking this may suck, because people also have to remember when the X-Men movie came out, the most, at least for me, the most recent and most famous movies that had come out before then were those two god awful Batman movies, Batman Forever,
With
Batman and Robin.
Clooney
Yeah,
and
Val Kilmer.
Kilmer. Yeah.
So like those were like, that was like the last dose of like Hollywood with comic book star that we got.
Sure.
So like
Sure.
everybody was already going in like sick to their stomach because those movies were so bad,
But those are good
so
actors,
bad.
though. Like
Yes,
Clooney's a good actor. All
yeah,
right.
but those
Kilmer's a great actor.
those
Or
scripts just
was.
weren't it. They just I mean they were just bad.
They made the villains too silly and cartoonish. Where I think like the Batman Begins series was like more dark and like realistic, not realistic,
Yes.
but like as real as it could feel without being too comic booky. Like Mr. Freeze and
I was
his
just gonna say
terrible
that.
one-liners,
Hey
bro.
everybody,
Yeah.
chill.
Yeah. Exactly. But they knew what they were doing. They also wanted to be like, kind of cartoonish about it. But yeah.
Oh my god. But yeah, dude, I mean, I give Jackman credit for, he was never a guy that you would have guessed would have made a living off of his physique, right?
We
But
didn't,
he
but
was
it
able to turn it
became
into a situation where he could play Wolverine for the money and then pursue other stuff for artistic sentiment,
a
right?
very
Like
talented person. He's like
you
an
know,
incredible singer, apparently.
yeah, he's
He's
a very
like a,
talented. He's a legit stage actor.
yes,
Like
yes.
legit stage actor. So like his he's one of those guys that did Wolverine because it was going to pay him enough that he could then go do whatever he wanted for other projects, and without having to
Yeah,
worry about it turning a
yeah,
profit. Like
it's
I'm
true.
getting paid 40 mil plus to play Wolverine. And now great. Now I can go do some indie movie, or I could go act in a play. I don't need to make money off of these other projects.
Yeah,
But like I said, I give him a lot of respect for continuing to train. I
agreed.
do think like what's his face? The dude that played Aquaman. Um,
Oh, Jason Momoa.
yeah, he's on record saying he hates lifting. He does
Really?
he does jujitsu. Okay, he's big into jujitsu, so it's not like he's someone who never trains or whatever. But like, frankly, it kind of shows in his physique. You
But
know what I
he's like
mean?
always carried that. Have you seen Game of Thrones?
Never
All
once.
right. Where he plays like basically a Genghis Khan, right? He plays like a barbarian king.
Uh-huh.
Okay. And he's kind of a big guy. So he's not very lean, but he's kind of a big guy. He probably trained for a few months beforehand. But like people were very impressed with his physique. He should be the physique of the week next week. But because he's not terribly impressive, he's not shredded to bodybuilder status, but he just carries a big frame. So it doesn't take much for him to show, to show big improvements.
Yes. As compared to, again, this is now like comparing a top high school player to like a fucking major league player, like
Sure.
as compared to like Carl Weathers, right?
Yeah.
Like 80s Carl Weathers, like that's
Yeah.
a dude who is
Fucking jacked
athlete genetics and is training all the
constantly.
time. He is
Yeah.
training
And it
all the
shows.
time. Yes, exactly. Like, and that's the thing with some of these movies, and also, dude, a lot of people don't think about this. Like Stallone or Schwarzenegger or Van Damme, they were cast to play action heroes like almost exclusively, right? But if you're someone like a Robert De Niro who has been in great shape for some movies
Sure.
and was at his prime very athletic, um maybe a Jason Momoa or a Hugh Jackman, like you're not getting cast to play the same roles, which means that you can't be jacked for every movie. You might have to play a nerdy sheepish guy. Okay. And if you come in and you're jacked and they can't even possibly hide it, or the audience so clearly associates you with being jacked, you just won't get that role to begin with. So
Yeah.
that does mean that you don't necessarily have the opportunity to build on your physique because it might not be what helps your career.
And
It
oftentimes
is
it's
what it
not.
is. Yeah.
For acting,
Yeah,
they don't
dude.
they don't always want a jacked person. It's not like
Of
that's
course.
if for certain roles. I had the privilege of meeting a like a sitcom comedian. Like he was on a sitcom a while back, and he basically told me that first of all he didn't like to work out that much, but he said that they told him don't put on any muscle. Your character is supposed to be frail. Like if you want
Okay.
this job, you better stay frail. But so like that's tough though. What if you had aspirations to be in better shape and you have to stay like you know completely muscleless and dad bod ish? It's really hard. I don't know if I could do it, but I guess it depends on how much money they offer you.
That's the thing. The price is right. And again, like
Yeah,
I say this about actors all the time. And we had this conversation, I think, when we spoke about Baywatch and the shape
yeah,
that Zac Efron was. Like, dude, you could complain about the shape an actor is in for a movie, but that's kind of like a Major League Baseball player complaining about the average guy's ability to catch and throw a baseball. Like, not everyone loves to do it, is my point. Like,
true.
if you're really into training and it becomes part of who you are, like you or me, like you can't
Yeah,
fathom not training. And so you look at someone showing
no,
up for a role and you're like, how could that guy not, like, I look better than that guy. Yeah, but they're not picking you because you can't act. Okay, this guy did like
the
this.
main thing they want is
Yeah,
the acting. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
And like on top of that, like not everybody loves to train. We have to just be completely honest. If everybody loved to train, we wouldn't have an obesity problem in America, right?
epidemic.
Not
Yes,
everybody loves to train. Some people like to
it's
do
true.
other shit. Or also maybe they like to work out. Maybe the guy's a runner. That's the thing. Not everyone even likes to exercise. Okay.
Most don't.
And then within exercise, there's different types of exercise.
Yeah,
So someone could be, oh, I like to swim. Great, go do that. I don't like to lift weights. It's boring. How many people have you spoken to that love to run or swim? They like being outside, they like being in motion, but you trap them in a gym, they're miserable because they feel confined. They want to be out there doing stuff or whatever.
sure.
Okay. Like that's a normal thing for a lot of people. So you look at an actor and you're like, oh, what? That's ridiculous. Like the guy probably doesn't like to train. Most of the guys that took the action hero roles clearly like to train. Okay. And they had the good fortune of also getting paid as a result of all of this. But like,
Yes,
you don't look like Prime, Van Damme, Arnold, of course, Stallone, all of these guys, even Jason Statham, if you don't like to train on some, you know what I mean? But that's why they get those roles, and that's why they're not considered for other roles. And it just is what it is, Ian. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah. It's true. It's
And,
true.
you can't get mad about it. And you are right. Like, dude, another perfect example of the arms race is like, look at Casino Royale, one of my favorite James Bond movies,
Yeah,
and look at
same.
Daniel Craig's physique versus like Sean Connery's physique. Okay. And Sean Connery was a competitive bodybuilder.
Is that
Okay.
right? I
And
didn't
was
know that.
told that he had to lose a lot of muscle in order to get into acting, which he did. So you could find pictures of him much bigger, not like, you know, Vince Garanda or any of those early 60s guys, but a guy that looked like he lifted on stage and had to lose muscle be bought as bought as a secret agent.
Hmm.
The American public didn't think a jacked guy was a secret agent, so he had to just like lose all the muscle and just be kind of slim and athletic. Fast forward however many years, 40, 50 years, probably 40 after he originally plays James Bond, and the audience is expecting Daniel Craig to be quite a bit more muscular, even though he's still not uber jacked relative
He's in great
to
shape. Great
relative
shape.
to how certainly like Roger Moore looked. I don't think
Yeah.
he was ever even
Roger Moore.
photographed with the shirt off for obvious
No.
reasons. Okay, uh, like it's a totally different universe. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
And it's
Have you ever
crazy to think about.
did you see the guy, I guess one of the main guys who kidnapped Maduro or captured him? Do you see this guy?
No,
I think he was just given some kind of, I don't know if it was a Medal of Honor or something like that, but he's like a ridiculous bodybuilder, like actually Captain America. He's like a ridiculous bodybuilder, jawline like an anvil. And then he goes and he's the first guy out of the plane to go capture Maduro. Like you gotta look this guy up. I forget his name, but it's wildly impressive how talented and gifted this person is to be that muscular on stage in a bodybuilding show. You know, look the way he does, which is basically like a Ken doll essentially, and then also
really.
be the badass Army Ranger or whatever special forces that he is to go and nab somebody. You know, it's just he's got everything. He's got it all.
So what's funny about that though? There's a guy I wish we could get him on our podcast. His name is Tom Satterley.
Okay.
Okay, he's a former Delta Force operator. Okay, he was he was at the Battle of Mogadishu, fought the Battle of Mogadishu.
Wow.
He has given numerous interviews about Battle of Mogadishu and what he went through there and his experiences afterwards. There's a very compelling documentary on Netflix right now. It's 3 parts about the whole Black Hawk Down incident, and it's actually told relatively neutral from both sides, and it has a lot of crazy like camcorder footage of the battle that I
Oh,
was not
jeez.
expecting, like really crazy. But Tom Satterley, Delta Force guy, obviously an elite specimen, he did talk about how he was talking about himself having this problem, but he was kind of alluding to the fact that this was something that a lot of other guys went through. That a lot of times after you become a special forces operator, the guys start to get jacked because they just sit around all day and train.
Well, it's like prison.
Yeah. And he actually said when he went through selection, I don't want to get everything totally incorrect here, but he might have been, we'll say, 190, 200 pounds. Okay, he could just run forever. And then towards the end of his career, he was 250.
Wow.
And he felt like it was definitively making him worse at the job, at
Definitely.
handling weapons and being quick and having endurance. So a lot of times these guys get selected and there's so much money and time invested in them that it would take a real screw up for them to get removed. So like you're already in, your record in combat or whatever is quite good. Like we don't necessarily care if you're that jacked. Like I remember reading like the upper weight limit to be accepted into BUDS, Navy SEAL training, basic underwater demolition SEAL training. I think the upper weight limit's 220. So like,
As the maximum weight.
yeah, yeah.
Really
So like,
interesting.
basically, I'm not saying I could get through it, but they wouldn't take me, right?
Yeah, I mean, so
Too heavy
you weigh in a certain amount of time before blood starts. You have
for
to like
sure.
cut
Yeah,
weight or weight it.
yeah,
So yeah, I mean, I've heard a lot of guys talk about their training prior to going to be deployed, whereas pretty much only endurance is what matters. So like you need to be able
yes,
to carry your gear for as long as it takes, and that can be it could be days straight. So, like one guy was saying he would wear a 70-pound weight vest and walk on the highest incline for like 3
yeah,
hours. So that'd be what he'd work up to.
yeah.
So like if you're 250, you're not doing that. I'm
No
sorry,
way,
you're just
dude.
not
Yeah,
doing that.
yeah. Your
Because you're
joints are gonna
carrying
fall
your
apart.
fat ass plus your gear
Yeah,
up that shit. You got to be pretty lean.
absolutely, dude.
And there are,
Absolutely.
I think, few instances in modern combat where there's actually a hand-to-hand component anymore. The more
Oh
advanced
no.
weapons get, you can get into a sticky situation, I'm sure, but odds are you're gonna be shot or you're gonna shoot someone or it's gonna be an explosion of some sort.
Sure.
It's not gonna be like a Occam situation in what is it? Saving Private Ryan. You ever see that movie?
Yeah, I don't even want to talk about that scene.
Fair enough. All right. Well, yeah.
I know
So
exactly what you're talking about. You know,
traumatizing scene.
yeah,
Traumatizing scene.
yes,
Very.
but
But the point is, you don't have to be a freak of nature. At 190, 200, I'm sure you're trained well enough and you're big enough to handle most people.
also the training for the job is by design a lot more difficult than the training once you have the job.
Correct.
Right? So, you know, you could put on some muscle, okay, and be a little bit more jacked once you've gotten through all of the
Yes.
rigorous endurance stuff. That's not even beneficial from a body training perspective. It's just there from like weeding out people that don't want to be here and seeing if your body could actually hold up to being in combat for a period of time. But like, there's no
Sure.
universe where it's good for your body to do 100-pound ruck up a hill for 10 hours.
No,
Like that's
no,
not a thing. Like there's no, that's
no
way
way.
overtraining, but they're not thinking about it in terms of, hey, are we actually improving you as an athlete? It's a totally different mindset,
Yeah.
obviously. But it's funny whenever I think about that scene from Saving Private Ryan, the only way I could get the trauma of it out of my head is to think about the only other scene with a knife that I could think of from a movie, which is with Commando. It is the come
Okay.
on,
Yeah.
Bennett.
Yeah.
Twist the knife, look into my
Yeah.
eyes, see what's going on in there when you do it. So I have to, I gotta get the bad taste of it out of my mouth by thinking of fat Freddie Mercury and the chainmail battling Arnold in like an industrial hallway somewhere with the
Yeah.
pipe. That's the only way I can get that trauma out. Come on,
Let off some
Bennett,
steam,
blow off
right?
some
Wasn't that the one
steam,
liner
Bennett.
there? Or
Yeah,
stick around was from Predator, right? When
yes,
he hit the
yes,
guy against the tree.
dude.
Stick around.
I edited a video, like I guess a couple weeks ago, of our conversation about Commando and put in some clips, and that might have been, with the exception of maybe the first Terminator, uh the biggest Arnold was on screen. Like I don't think he ever got to that jacked again for the rest of his
What about
career.
Conan?
Yeah, he's right there. He's right there with Conan too. The first one, especially
Yeah.
the Barbarian. I actually think he slimmed down substantially by the time he did Predator, and then I think he kind of maintained a Predator-ish physique more or less for the rest of his career, which is all he needed. Right? That
It's like a
doesn't.
layup for him though
Yeah,
at that point.
exactly.
That's kind of nice, right?
Yeah,
It's like
awesome. Yeah, just show up,
yeah.
have 19-inch arms, cruise around at 12% body fat. You know what I mean? Have great insertions.
Yeah.
Just look awesome. But you know, I was looking at it, I was like, yeah, I don't remember him being this big and lean, because you kind of realize he wasn't that shredded later on. He was big and was
Yeah.
probably holding 12, 14% body fat.
Sure.
That was good enough for what he had to do in a lot of these movies. Whereas, like, again, someone like Stallone, who doesn't have the size, had to come in just like bone shredded to compete.
Yeah, peeled.
He had to just
Yeah,
come in like, I'm willing to die to look good for this movie level.
sure.
Like the type of peeled where it's like, if we don't shoot the action sequences first in this, where I'm shirtless, I may not be able to finish shooting. like, I feel like I
Yeah.
can't possibly maintain this, you know, over the course of a period of time. Now, I want to say one last thing here, and I'm going to ask you to hold me accountable to this. Um, so a couple weeks ago, one of the last shows that we did, I referenced a story that I had read in Bret Hart's autobiography. Okay, in which Bret Hart was telling about his time wrestling the British Bulldog at SummerSlam
Sure.
'92,
I
and
recall.
in the book, Bret Hart talks about how he couldn't reach the British Bulldog before SummerSlam, and he's wondering what's going on, and then when he finally sees him in England, maybe the week of the show, the British Bulldog, according to Brett, says, "Yeah, I was in Florida smoking crack with Jim the Anvil Neidhart." Now, I
Yeah.
posted this, and the British Bulldog's family reached out to me. Um, namely, uh, his widow, who, you may not know this since you're not a pro wrestling guy the way I am, is Bret Hart's sister.
Wow. Didn't
Okay.
know that.
So her
Yeah.
name is Diana Hart, and she reached out to me.
Okay.
And I got to say this, she was really nice to me, Ian. Like, wrote like an extremely nice thing, like, hey, like, that's not what happened, because my philosophy, and Ian, you shoot content, and we both discussed the hardest part for you and I, at least my understanding of this with you, is just getting it done. So,
Most
once we've
likely, yeah,
recorded the
yeah.
content, I edit it, I get it done, I move on to the next thing. And I guess without knowing it, my philosophy turned into, if it's true, I'm just going to say it. And I definitely didn't think about the consequences of what I was saying, right?
Yeah.
And certainly didn't think about, oh, this might hurt the. First of all, I immediately assumed it was true, okay? Because who would think that uh, his brother in law would make up a totally insane story about the guy smoking crack, which turned out to be true, okay? And Diana Hart reached out to me, and we'll just say that she produced um, a lot of evidence. I didn't ask for this. I wasn't holding your feet to the fire, that the reason why the British Bulldog took time off before SummerSlam 92 was actually he had a staph infection that turned into the flesh eating virus.
Jesus.
Okay. To say she showed me some proof that that was the case. Okay. The reason why he wasn't in top shape for that match was he was told, you are not allowed to work out because blood flow will feed this virus, will feed this
Damn.
bacterium, which will actually cause it to maybe kill you. He was on extremely aggressive antibiotics for like a month. Now, anyone who's taken antibiotics will tell you it saps you, okay? But taking 2 or 3 a day when you have basically an antibiotic resistant staph infection that's in advanced stages, it's pretty much either we do these antibiotics or we amputate something or you die. That's the level that
Christ.
that we're talking about here. In
Yeah.
this case, it was in his knee. So we're not talking about even just cutting out a chunk of your leg, which is still not acceptable, but you can't lose your leg, especially as a pro wrestler. And so, yeah, she reached out to me. She showed me some evidence that proved her point, and basically said that she didn't understand why Brett would make this up. Said that there was 10 years from when they wrestled in 1992 until when the British Bulldog passed away, and in those 10 years, the accusation of him smoking crack was never once discussed. There was no grievances in the family like, hey, Davey, why did you almost blow your big chance in the WWF? And her reasoning, and I believe her, was it's because it didn't happen. And she didn't understand why Brett, her brother, would make something like this up.
Yeah.
And she said, maybe, I'm not going to say what she said. I don't want to,
That's fine.
I'm
That's
going to learn to
fine.
keep
Yeah,
my
no,
mouth
you've
shut.
already
But
divulged a
yeah,
lot. Yeah.
but I just want to say
Interesting.
that I'm sorry, and I was struggling with what to say about this.
Sure.
I just tell people, it's a crazy thing. There's that saying, and it's so true. Like, a lie gets halfway around the world before truth even gets out of bed, right? And like, you don't realize how much of your thought process and how much of the world operates on implied trust, right? Like,
Yes.
if you doubt everything you see, think about it. If we doubted every single thing we've ever seen, we wouldn't have great innovations.
It's
We
true.
would not be able to stand on the shoulders of giants if the guys who split the atom wanted to go back to, pre-Newtonian works of physics, okay? They would have spent their whole life doing that and they never would have built on it. Now, we could argue whether or not that's a good thing or a bad thing. The point is, so much of content creation, of anything, is based on just implied trust, our ability to think that what we are being told is the truth and deal with that narrative as opposed to questioning literally everything. And I made a mistake of not questioning enough. I felt
Okay.
I felt pretty bad about it, and I got to say, man, she was really really kind with the way that she reached out to me. She could have been a lot nastier, and we had an open dialogue about it. And I just kind of explained to her the situation. I apologized, and so the point is, people, like, even when it comes from me or Ian, you know, be careful what you believe and what you listen. You know what I mean? Like, what you listen to. Like, I will never, and I make this like a solemn promise to the listener and certainly to Ian, I'm never going to come on here and deliberately tell you a lie or an untruth. Okay.
Sure.
But if information I get second, third, or fourth hand turns out to be untrue, sometimes there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well,
And it's unfortunate. And you don't. And the other thing too, Ian, you don't think about this. At least I don't. Like, you hit send or whatever on your phone, whatever you're posting from. I would never think that Bret Hart's sister would see this, because in my mind, and this is a problem, those are like famous people, and I'm over here in the non-famous area. Okay. But you don't know who sees your content. And that could be a very powerful thing,
Yes.
but the way the internet works, everyone's got a phone. Everyone's got Instagram. Okay. Everyone's scrolling when they're sitting on the toilet, meaning even people that you think would be untouchable, okay, wouldn't, would actually maybe see your content. And, I'll close it with this. There's a movie I watched the other day. It's called The House of Dynamite. All right. And it's about a ICBM being launched at the United States and just what happens in the country as a result of this. Okay. And one of the things that really struck me was Idris Elba plays the president of the United States. Okay. And he is being tasked with, okay, this ICBM is coming. We have to literally nuke every enemy of America right now while their planes and missiles are still on the ground, or else like they could totally destroy us if we wait, basically, if we show weakness. But in the movie, they have not figured out whether or not who this missile's even from. They can't pinpoint a source. Okay. No one knows what's happening, and it's about to hit Chicago. That's what's happening in the movie. Okay. And what really struck me, the way this pertains to what we're discussing, Idris Elba is on Marine One, the helicopter, and he's traveling with, the guy who's got the nuclear football, whose job is just a Navy guy that just has the fucking briefcase, handcuffed to his wrist. And he's like, man, I was listening to this podcast the other day, and they just called it they called our defense systems and our international relations a house of dynamite. And it's like, yeah, of course the president of the United States would listen to a podcast. He's a person. You never
Yeah.
know who's listening to your stuff. You have no
Yeah.
idea, like,
Yeah.
how much influence someone could have over someone else if this is the only history podcast you listen to, or let's say we're the only training podcast you listen to, and maybe you're a celebrity. Maybe there are people that listen to this that are top level in entertainment or something, and they're getting all of their training information from us. That's possible. It could happen. And it's
Yeah.
crazy to think about, dude. It's crazy to think about.
On the one hand, it's kind of cool that your content's popping off.
I
On the
agree.
other hand, like you're getting followers from big people, like, notable names in the industry, fitness industry, bodybuilding, etc. So that's kind of cool. But you're absolutely right, man. There's some a responsibility just to not spew
Yeah,
bullshit
dude.
for the
Yeah.
most part. So I'm going to actually step up and do the same thing. Last episode or two, I don't know, 1 or 2 weeks ago, I said that Joseph Tamburello, Long Island powerlifter, completely fake plates. I just didn't believe it. I didn't believe it because it just looked so cartoonish. And then I saw some kind of something come through my feed that he was at an MHP, like a maximum human performance supplement company, made an
Yes.
event with Julius Maddox and a bunch of other guys who are big names in the powerlifting social media world. And he took a shot at 740 bench press with wrist wraps and elbow
750.
sleeves.
750.
Okay, I thought it was 742, but because
Anyway,
they count.
continue. Because
Well,
I saw the.
anyway, yeah. So didn't get it, but worked up to like 640 was his last warm up set or something like that.
Mhm.
So if you're doing that among those people with real plates, well, I'm no one to say anything about your strength or not. So that's still incredibly impressive. I don't understand it. I don't get it, because I just pressed 315 the other day for a couple of reps, and I just do not. I can't even fathom how somebody who's probably maybe 40 pounds heavier than me can bench press more than double for reps. It just seems
He's a
just
freak,
outrageous. Yeah,
and I
yeah,
legitimately pray, and I really mean this, that someone with a brain and his best interests at heart gets a hold of him. Because that type of strength is like, without experience, is like giving a toddler a machine gun.
but he's been doing it for years.
I
It's
know, but
not
it's
like
like,
it's not like it's been overnight. He
yeah,
went from 300 pounds to
I just
700
wish that
pounds.
there was a coach that he could go to. First of
Yeah,
all, he's lifting with shit equipment. He's on a commercial gym bench with those garbage hex plates, and the bar is just wonking around. Like,
The
can
bar
we
shouldn't
get?
have more than 600 pounds on it, by
Yeah,
the way. Those bars are going to snap.
yes.
They will
Could
snap.
we get you on a legit bar with calibrated plates that aren't just going to slide off because they're more dense? On a competition bench where the spotter is above you and has more leverage, and where maybe you have those lower pins, that lower cage that protects your head. You know what I mean? Like a lot of
Sure.
competition benches. Like, could we
Sure.
just get you on that? I don't want you to die. I don't want you to suffer some type of catastrophic injury. And can we get a coach that could teach you how to wield this weapon? Okay, like a
Yeah.
true pro, and you could go down in history as one of the greatest benchers of all time
It's true.
if we just had someone get a hold of you, okay, and just give you better equipment instead of lifting with the knuckleheads that you're lifting with. And I get it. You have friends, you want to be around your friends, and
But he's
some of
not a
these guys
toddler,
want to
though.
be in your video so they could be seem cool and happening, and they're with it. But this dude has such incredible potential.
Yeah.
Frankly, his bench is almost as impressive. Not as impressive, almost as impressive as like what Colton is doing. Okay,
I think the full meat is just
way more
astounding.
impressive.
So,
I agree.
I
Colton is
can't
on a
even.
the strongest human being that
It's
I've ever seen,
outrageous.
maybe ever. Okay,
And is he only 24? Is that right? How's it possible? How is it? He must have perfect genetics, like leverages plus training and technique and draw, whatever, all the combination of everything he has. It's just, I am excited that we're part of this part of history, that
Colton
we're seeing
is
this because it's
he's
outrageous.
the best lifter since Ed Cohn. Uh, Ed Cohn, like I think we just discussed last time or a couple weeks ago, is smaller than Colton. So to compare his
Sure.
numbers,
Yeah.
Colton started lifting as a 165er and then kind of worked his way up to 242. You know, Colton's kind of started at 242 and now he's lifting at 275, but I still think he's under the weight limit. Point is, this is a situation where literally everything in terms of leverage, muscle fiber composition, mentality, insertion points, training equipment. He's got great equipment, right?
Sure.
Every single thing is there.
Yeah.
Like it's unbelievable to see the weights that this guy is lifting. And with Tumbarello, it's like, dude, you could bench. I don't know how heavy he is. Maybe he's what, 275. I don't know.
Something like that, probably.
If you benched 750 at 275 raw, that could be one of the greatest benches of all time.
Yep.
Okay, but he obviously hasn't done it in competition. Like we said last time, there's something that's keeping him from actually doing it with a pause and taking some weight off the bar and doing it
And he does
correctly.
have the elbow wraps, which may add some,
For
like a
sure.
bench shirt.
For
They add a lot
sure.
of spring from the bottom,
Yes.
tension.
For
I
sure.
mean, from a longevity standpoint, for his elbow's sake, I get it. I mean, I get it. If
You
you're,
know,
weekly, you're benching that much weight.
but at the same token, like from a longevity perspective, you better figure out how to get more out of less weight. Like, well, I guess we'll close it with this. Like, I remember when Spoto broke Mendelssohn's record, which has got to be like 10 years ago, right? I think he benched
Or
like
more.
722. He broke Mendelssohn's 715. I remember talking to our buddy Dom. Dom was friends with some of the guys in his training crew, and it was basically like Spoto was like racking his brain trying to figure out how to go as light as possible and still get strong because
Really?
he knew how many times I could only load this gun so many times before
Sure.
it explodes in my hand. Like I can't, like, that's why the Spoto, he was trying to invent things that took some weight off of the bar because, to our listeners who don't know this, like a heavy raw bench press, dude, in my opinion, from an injury perspective, is the most dangerous of all three power lifts.
Hmm.
I just think that the structure, your wrist, elbows, and pectoral tendons, I just think that they're so much weaker than what you see with the similar stuff in the lower body. And the
It's
bench
true.
press is not a natural movement in the sense of your shoulder blades are pinned down. It's not like your scapular are moving like a hinge or a squat. It's a little bit more of a natural movement for your body to go through. Of course, you can make the argument it's never natural to have 1,000 pounds in your hands. Sure, whatever, I get it.
Yes.
But point is, like you will eventually get hurt playing with those weights, and I hope it's at least for a good reason. That's all.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
All
I
right,
just want to see where Colton goes to.
listen,
That's what I'm
guys,
really most excited about.
I got to go pick up my little girl from school. This has been one hell of a show. I'm gonna send you Ian a message after the show. But guys,
All right.
take care. We love you all.